This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward. Shane, we're making lots of changes in our retail operation there in East Texas. Let's talk about the what's, the whys, and all of the reasons why other people need to be emulating the fabulous ideas that we're putting into place.
I'm not really sure that I'm going to live up to the expectation of that intro, but we'll try. I'm not afraid of change. I've never been afraid of change. Sometimes I've been accused of being overzealous about change. I loved the book, Who Moved My Cheese? If you are not familiar with that older book, it's a book about change, how to get your people to change, etc.
It's the book that if you work in corporate America, every time a new sales manager or general manager gets hired for your organization, they buy it for everybody and they make you read it. If you've been with an organization a long time, you probably have 12 or 13 copies of it.
So it's a classic, business classic at this point. 1 Minute Manager, Raving Fans, another one of my favorites, probably my ultimate favorite there. But change is inevitable with growth. I realize that. I know that. I get tired too, and I know people get tired. But it's important on our podcast that we talk openly about what it is that we're doing. I hope that listeners understand that we're not just talking theoretical, that we talk about a lot of things that we do. And this is just another one of those things that we are currently doing. As a matter of fact, we're in the start phase. It's still idea. And by the time this podcast airs, we'll have been about a week, maybe 2 weeks in to actually doing this. And it is something that we've looked at before. It's come back around in a better way because there's more technology behind it and there's more capability for automation behind it than there was many moons ago. And so our structure in our retail operation basically has salespeople, producers, and then account managers. And our account manager role is responsible for servicing business and for retaining that business. Our account managers own the renewal process. And we have decided that we are going to create a third role that a lot of really large agencies have in place. Sometimes they call this role something different, but we're creating what we're calling a CSR or customer service rep position. So think about this as a 3-layered approach. So you got sales or producers, you got account managers, and then you have CSRs. The CSR role is being designed to be a transactional role. And what we've watched, learned, reviewed, and thought through is account managers reaching a point of being overwhelmed, especially through the market over the last couple of years, and just having to constantly add new account managers, split the book of business again, just hitting these tipping points or these limits. And so the idea is that we want to pull all the transactional things off of the account managers, and we want to put them into a rotational CSR team. And so the idea is that certificates of insurance and commercial, very simple billing questions, ID cards, all of these things that are quick, transactional, answer the phone, answer the email, just get it done quickly type things are going to be specifically put into this CSR team. That way account managers can be elevated to more of a coverage specialist, renewal manager, and salespeople, producers, can continue to be producers. It's a 3-layer approach to how do we keep growing our business and how do we keep managing and retaining our business as we go through different growth cycles.
That is fantastic. We have a second/third-ish generation retail agency with 3 locations, tons of employees. That's fantastic for us. How does this idea apply to our solopreneurs or entrepreneurs that have 1, maybe 2 employees?
I actually think it fits right in with something that you should think about. There's multiple ways to do this, and I'm not yet sure that I stand with confidence and say hey, this is the answer. I know for us, after interviewing our account managers, getting feedback from our account managers, we ask them, how do they feel? What's causing you problems? All of those things that you want to hear back from your people. We found that transactional natured interactions were very time consuming. It made them stop and start a process and so forth. And so as you look at this and you're at that realm of solopreneur, or maybe you've already hired one person and you're thinking about hiring a second person. One of the things that I believe helps here is if you stop and think, what is it that I want this first hire? I don't think this applies, obviously, to the solopreneur who's going to stay a solopreneur. What happens is there's ultimately going to be a cap on your sales at some point. It is valid to stay solopreneur if you want to do that. If that's your goal, that's what works for you. Where this thought process comes into place is, I'm going to hire my first employee, or I'm going to hire my second or third employee. And the question is, what kind of structure of workflow and process are you going to put in place when you do this? What is that new employee going to do? I don't know that agency owners put a lot of thought into that. What happens is they get overwhelmed and they've held off, and then it's my hair's on fire, I just need help. And so they hire somebody, but they're not 100% sure what it is that person's going to do every day. They just need somebody to take some things off of them to help them. Hiring that account manager role, like we have it designated at this point, is a little bit higher level of an experienced hire. That's going to be a little harder person to find. But someone who either you can help get licensed and do some training with, or someone who has a license at another agency but not a lot of experience, this is something that you can think about doing and hiring that person and putting them into this CSR role, what I'm calling this transactional role, that will give you some immediate relief for billing questions, for ID cards, for mortgage changes. We've created a list of 7 or 8 things that go in the transactional bucket. That might grow to 10, it might shrink back to 6, but there are a number of things that our retail managing director, Tara Graham, has come up with based on feedback from the account managers that say, hey, these are the things that can be transactionally done, that are transactional by nature, that can relieve an agent, in this case, like we're talking about, a solopreneur agent, and it can take some of that stuff off of them so that they can be more client-focused, coverage, risk management specialist, sales-oriented. That is something that I would say to the solopreneur is, what does this have to do with me? It has everything to do with you, because it has to do with what's the right first hire to make, what's the right second hire to make. You might already have that person in place, and you may need to elevate that person to this coverage, renewal manager type, what we call account manager role, and you may need to hire them what will essentially become an assistant that is a CSR that does this transactional stuff.
How do we get our clients to make this adjustment? In past podcasts, we've talked about what happens when you bring someone on board. They always want to talk to the person whose name is on the door, or they want to always talk to the person that they have talked with in the past and who has done a really great job for them. I'm not going to say I am not one of those people, because I am. I love to get to know the person that's on the other end of the phone and establish a relationship with them as a client. So how do we help our clients make this adjustment?
This is going to sound a little funny from the guy who is running an organization that has a set of core values, and one of those core values is honesty wins. So this is going to sound a little funny coming out of my mouth, but transparency and honesty wins. The agency owner in this case, or the people that have built the relationship, that's the expert that the customer at one time had the chance to talk to, and now they don't necessarily have as easy of a chance to talk to, they have to become a little less available. And this should be natural. It should be natural from the sense that we make this happen by staying focused on the main thing. And if you're the agency owner, rainmaker, producer, you should be focused on producing. Okay. And so you should be out making sales calls. You should be talking to prospects. You should be doing all those things. If you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, then it becomes very easy for that new CSR that is now answering the frontline phone to be able to say, Sally is unavailable right now, but let me see if I can help you. What is it that you're looking to do? If it's one of those transactional things, they get it done, boom. And so making yourself a little less available to me is step one.
I work for Integra. The retail agency has most of my insurance except for my homeowners, because they don't write homeowners in Florida, because nobody writes homeowners insurance in Florida. But our cars, our boat, all of that is handled at the home office there in Texas. And a few weeks ago, a mistake happened. And the guy who handles my account sent me a message, hey, a mistake has happened. Can we get on the phone? And I said, sure. And because of my position within the org, you could tell that he was really upset that this happened. And he said, hey, do I need to let Tara know that this has happened? And I said, no. Handle me just like you would handle anybody else. You're going to fix this. We're going to figure out how it happened. We're going to figure out what we could do to fix it. I have faith in you. And that actually meant something to him, that I was able to say, I have faith you can fix this. You don't need to call somebody else in unless we can't fix it. Putting faith in your people and letting them know it's okay to make a mistake. As long as it's fixable, let's just fix it and move on. That empowers your people so much. It is easy to step in and fix it yourself. It takes less energy. It takes less effort. It takes less time. But let your people fix their mistakes. And that's being the best leader possible. When you're able to do that in long term, it helps them take the load off of you.
I'm probably going to step on some toes with this comment, but that's okay because you really need to hear it as an agency owner. If you find yourself in a place where you don't trust your people, you don't trust the individuals you've hired, number one, you made a mistake. You hired someone that you shouldn't have hired. And I will tell you, for their sake and your sake, start today with a plan to move them along to someone else's employment. That's going to mean some temporary extra work for you, but you're going to let go of that stress, because if you hired someone and you wish you wouldn't have hired them, or the litmus test for me, if so-and-so quit today, would I be upset or happy? There's your litmus test. Would it upset me if they quit today? If the answer is no, it would not. And I don't mean you got them licensed or you spent some money training them or whatever, and you're mad because you lost that money. That actually means you're upset that they're leaving. I'm talking about you think about it often, you look at it often, and you've had issues and you're like, man, this just isn't working out. But you're a nice person and you just can't pull the trigger. You can't make that decision to move on past this person. If that's the case, then you need to start today offboarding them. The second thing is, and it's really more stepping on your toes, because that means you probably didn't train them well. That means that you did not put them through either the proper training, or you yourself are lacking in the training skills, whatever it is, because you've hired this person, you've increased your cost, which means you've dug into your back pocket in terms of profit, and you put this person in place and you didn't invest in them. And now you don't trust them to do the work that you hired them to do. Both of these things are on you as an owner. You either have to say, let's go back to the beginning and let's train so that I can get comfortable that you can handle the stuff that I need you to handle, or I made a bad decision, I made a bad hire. Understanding that faster and sooner rather than later becomes really important. I love this article that I read. I've mentioned it before on the podcast about this private equity investor with a failed investment, just realizing in hindsight that they knew that the leader, in this case, the CEO, was the wrong person to be leading this company. And they didn't do anything about it, and the company failed. That goes for this situation, any hiring. I'm not talking about you being a constant revolving door hatchet person. I'm talking about slow down and hire better. Be honest with yourself. We've been guilty of this in the past. We hire a person because we're drowning instead of hiring the right person and then training that person well and then being able to trust and let go of the fact that you're no longer in the servicing realm. Those are the things that we have to see as agency owners, is that it really comes back on us when we find ourselves in these spots.
Shane, that's really easy to say. How do you develop yourself as a leader to get to that position? And I ask this question because most agency owners are busy to the max, booked and busy. You know, that phrase that I absolutely can't stand, but that's how they feel. That's how, when they look at it, and this goes beyond this challenge I've seen in every single industry as a small business owner. I don't have time to train people. I do not have time to answer those questions. I've got to keep doing what I'm doing to keep my business afloat.
Yes, that's important to understand first and foremost. If you're an agency owner, you're not alone. I don't think we can afford to just ignore the fact or ignore the things that are causing us to be that way. Why is it that we don't have time for our own leadership development? What is it that's going on? Let's back up a little bit. Are we underfunded? Did we jump off into starting something that we didn't have the funding to actually accomplish and see its way through? And what that could mean is you're not very technical and you're not very good at being hands-on, but you don't have the funding to hire your weakness. So you're doing it yourself, terribly, by the way. So you're in this situation, and now what do? Maybe you need to be a producer at an agency that has the infrastructure. Agency ownership, while our goal at the Integra Partner Network is to make everyone, or allow everyone who wants to be and has the skills to be an independent agency owner, we want to enable that to happen. That's part of our BHAG. Big, hairy, audacious goal is to help individuals that want to be independent agency owners become independent agency owners. That is not a 100% situation, in the sense that not everyone who wants to be that should be that. Some individuals need to stay producers and allow the infrastructure that they're under solve all of those problems, because they don't necessarily have the funding yet to jump off into this. And so maybe it's, I need to stay a producer a little while longer. I see this a lot where producers jump out into it and they don't have the ability to hire their weaknesses. The other situation is that an agency owner is doing something wrong in terms of training your clients. You're right out of the gate making yourself available at ridiculous hours of the day, or you are writing a lot of monoline auto business or a lot of monoline business in general. You're not writing package accounts. You're writing auto only. You're writing monoline home. You're not getting the full share of the wallet that you should be getting. You're not focused on policies per customer. You're not becoming the customer's full-time agent. You're becoming their part-time agent. You're allowing them to keep their auto with Geico or Progressive Direct, and you're writing their home. That is one of the reasons you could be extremely busy and say, I don't know what to do. I don't have time. I can barely do anything, much less develop myself. There's a really good chance that you're doing something wrong that you need to deal with first. You need to deal with that first, your own habits first, before you start hiring people. Because hiring people is going to give you a little bit of reprieve, but if you don't address how you're selling, if you don't address how you are building the book of business or growing the book of business, then your long-term profitability outlook is not going to be as good as it could be, because you're going to have to hire people more often. This is going to cause your agency long-term profitability issues. And guess what? If you have profitability issues long-term, you have a lower valuation of your agency than what it could be. You could have this agency, I'm going to make up numbers, that is worth $1 million 10, 15 years from now. And that's your retirement plan. But if you build it the right way and you address these problems with yourself first, that book of business could be worth $2 million. The doubled retirement nest egg that could have been prevented 15, 20 years earlier, but you couldn't solve your own problem. You didn't address the elephant in the room by looking inward and going, okay, I'm actually the problem here. And we don't do that enough. There are things that I today continue to try to get better at that I still stink at. I don't move fast enough when we hire wrong. I'm the guy that is going to try to move people into different seats on the bus until we fully exhaust that effort. Maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, but it's a reality of who I am, and that's a reality of how our organization works because of my leadership. That's something that has to get better because it's not a perfect science to hire.
I want to go back to the idea of leadership and personal development. I do this a lot in the car. Every time I get in the car to go to dinner or run an errand, there's usually something that I'm listening to for this. Right now, I am listening to Molly Fletcher's new book, Dynamic Drive. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm listening to something. A lot of times, if the cute boy wants to sit down and watch television in the evening, I am not a TV person. I'm going to be reading something on my Kindle, watching TV. Make the time for the personal development. It will make all the difference in the world.
If you're not a reader, it's very difficult to be a successful business owner. I've never met successful business owners, small business owners, executives, large corporation executives. I've just never met anyone that I can remember that was at that level or doing that who wasn't a reader, who wasn't a learner of developmental things. That may be like offensive to somebody that's, I'm not a reader and I own an agency. I understand. I'm not saying it's 100%. I just know that my interactions with individuals in those positions, they are all readers and they're avid readers. And they read a lot of business books and they learn over time to discern between the stuff that is cuckoo, crazy, left field stuff and stuff that's, man, that's a great nugget. I need to take that away. Every book I've read, all the way to the things that are really out there, to the things that are like really grounded and good, I've learned something out of all of those books or listening to all those books, whether I read it or listened to it. I've learned something and I always take away something. And sometimes you have to get through all the noise. You got to cut through all the noise and see your way through it. But I know that, to Tonya's point, is very important to do. I thought she was going to say something that I do, talking about the car. Just full disclosure, if I'm by myself, I will not do this if Julie's in the car with me or other people are in the car with me. I will practice talking about something to someone. If I'm having to deal with a unpleasant situation, a confrontational situation, a negative situation, that is development. Who else are you going to practice on? Like, you practice on your spouse? Okay, you could do that. But you can also practice, at least for me, I practice in the truck. I'm driving somewhere, I'm by myself. I got something coming up in the next few days, whatever, hours, weeks. I talk about it out loud. Like I listen to what I'm saying. It's not even odd anymore to be driving down the road and look over and see a vehicle with a person in there by themselves talking. So you don't even have to worry about looking like an idiot. People just think that you're talking on the phone. I do this, and then something Tonya mentioned to me several years ago that has helped me. I record myself and I listen back and see what ridiculousness I was saying. I do that on walks. I put my AirPods in and take my phone, put it on voice notes, and I talk and I listen back and I play it back. And this is development. This is what development looks like. And look, if what you're saying when you listen to yourself sounds crazy, you might want to keep practicing before you have that conversation, that hard conversation about this person that you've made the mistake hiring and they're not supposed to be on the bus and you need to improve your agency. But until you deal with this problem, you can't, because you can't afford to hire another person and leave them just there. And so This is just me telling you all the craziness that my brain goes through when I'm dealing with this. Is I actually talk to myself. There's a lot of development in that. And there's a lot of, in a weird way, there's some sanity in that. You're getting it out of your head somewhere, somehow. So I'll let you take that for where you want to take it.
Sanity is good. I'm going to leave us today with this quote from Hank Aaron. My motto was always to keep swinging. Whether I was in a slump or feeling badly or having trouble off the field, the only thing to do was keep swinging.
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
Ready to get the ball rolling with your independent agency? Learn more at IntegraAgent.com. That's IntegraAgent.com. Thank you for joining us on IA Forward. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now or learn more at IAForward.com.